Hi, I'm Becky.
And I'm Lindsay, and today we're here to talk about process or product and the importance of both and the balance. The balance of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do we mean by process or product to start with, I think is the key, because you'll go, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Always. We meet so many people that all the time, whether it is in schools, one-to-ones, business people that we're coaching, that always go, I want to get here. This is what I want to do. And that's fine. And that's so important to have that aim.
Very much. You need that goal. We've talked about goal setting and visions. We need that.
However, sometimes you can focus on that so much that you don't engage in the process, or you don't realise the progress that you're making along the way to that stepping stone. And I had a prime example of this morning. I was in a nursery, and the nursery manager very rarely comes into the sessions because she's usually dealing with other stuff, and she's got one-to-ones, whatever, and it was her turn to come in and experience the workshop today. And a couple of times she was like, I needed that. Because the entire day she's dealing with quite difficult conversations to the end goal, to get this for the child, we've got to get this, we've got to get that. And because she hasn't seen them, she stepped in and suddenly was able to realise, oh my goodness, how amazing is that progress that they've made through that process. And it was a real kind of, oh, they're doing so well. And she went, I needed that to spur me into the rest of the day and rejuvenate me into what I've got to get done the rest of the time. And so it's about, how do you do that when it's your own journey? Because that's very different to being able to look in on somebody else's journey.
Completely.
So yeah, let's share some tips and ideas about how you step out of your journey to enjoy the process.
So my first one is very much reflective practice. It's a standard for teachers, for NHS, for anything, that reflective practice. Step back, reflect on each day.
A reflective practice is really tricky. It's not an easy thing to do. So people go, oh, be reflective. Quite often you'll find people go straight in the reflective practice to talking about what went wrong, what was terrible, what's awful, and then all of a sudden you're in this pit of, well, I'm rubbish and I'm crap at it, I can't do it, I might as well give up. So if people are wanting to engage in reflective practice, how can we support them in doing that? What top tip can we give them?
Do it from an appreciative aspect.
Always first.
Always appreciate what you have done. Appreciate what you can do better. Don't look at the negative. It's always about what could go better, not what went wrong. We don't focus on that.
It happened. It's okay. Leave it in that moment.
We're going to make mistakes. Things are going to go wrong. It's all going to go tits up. It's what happens in life. It does. Any aspect of life.
All the time.
So always look at what went well first. Celebrate those wins. Then look at what you could improve for next time based on what happened that day. And then take it that next step from there.
And that next step is really important, that it's set out in a way that it's a really achievable target. You don't try and solve the whole problem, you just try and solve part of the problem to move forward. And then that's where it becomes reflective, because then the next time you go back and you can go, oh, that had that impact, I could feel that. Now I can add something else onto it rather than trying to fix all the problems at once.
And also the solution you design for it may not work.
Yeah.
Everyone has their own journey, their own way of interpreting things, their own way of hearing things, their own way of putting it into practice.
Yeah.
It ain't gonna work for everyone.
Yeah, and that's totally all right as well. So it's, again, allowing, not being rigid in that reflective practice, but taking the moment to realise what did work, what didn't go okay, right, that's fine, let's park it, let's think of something tangible to move forward, and then build that into the next reflection as you move forward. So yeah, reflective practice is really, really good one. The other one is objectivity.
Ooh,
for me.
That?
So for me, that can come in two ways. So I sometimes like to do this with some students, is instead of being in your mindset and in what you're thinking, is stepping out and seeing yourself from outside, and like, what would others say and what would others think, because it gives you a fresh perspective on it, and it labels you to be more objective and go, actually, well, if that was if I'd seen somebody else doing that, what would you have said to them? Or if they'd have got to there, what would you have said to them? And you'd have gone, oh, you know, that was awesome, you did this, you did well. And so by being objective and putting yourself as somebody else, what would you say if you were them? And then you say it back to yourself, and then it's that positive self-talk. But you can't do positive self-talk until you're able to be objective with yourself. Yeah. And sometimes that does mean go get a rocket up your arse and crack on. You need to do it. It's just like stop, whatever. It doesn't always have to be so wonderful. Sometimes you can tell yourself off as well. But it's having that objectivity, right? Well, what would so-and-so say? Or if I flipped it and I was watching somebody else doing what I've just done, what advice would I give to them? I do that, right, okay, now I can process it because it stepped it away from you as a personal, because we are our worst critics.
Crickets, I think that could be something else. Are we talking bugs or are we talking sport?
Oh, a bit both. But yeah, jumping around. So yeah, it's about being objective, I think, and that objectivity is a skill.
Yeah. Another one from me, this is not something I enjoy doing and not something I do myself, but I've seen the benefits elsewhere. Is gratitude diaries.
Oh yeah.
And it doesn't have to be something that you keep in a book. It could be that you write down something about that you've won each day. And it could be something that you've personally won in something that you set out, or something that someone you're working with has done. And I'm saying this from a business coach perspective, not for me business coaching, but someone else back in the day. And one of the things that I came out with in one of my coaching sessions, and he throws it back to me still to this day, Lindsey knows exactly who I'm talking about.
I've clicked now, which is
I turned around at one point and went, I took a day off today to spend with my family and I didn't feel guilty about not working. And for him, for his gratitude diary, he wrote that down because that was such a big win for me, because that was one of the things we'd been working towards in our coaching sessions. So it doesn't have to be your win.
Yeah.
But write it down because that is a win.
Yeah, 100%. So if you're on a journey towards a performance, or if you're on a journey towards building your business to grow, or if you're on a journey towards sitting an exam or taking an assessment or whatever it is, it doesn't have to be your win in that journey. It could be that, they explained it so good to me today, it stuck. Yeah. And so it's just highlighting the good all the time, because then it empowers you to build, doesn't it?
Completely. And you can either write it in a book and go through the book and reflect. Lots of people do it through jars, and they write a bit in the paper, put it in the jar, and at the end of the year, they go through and read all the gratitudes. And they do that as a reflection of the year.
Yeah.
It's quite cool.
That's a good one. Another thing for me to help focus on the process rather than the product is stepping away and taking time out and having actual silence. Becky knows how much I hate silence, and
I love silence.
Yeah, I love music and I'll do whatever. But actually, for me, in those moments of silence where we force our brains to be quiet and we force our brains to stop and slow down and just see other things. If you're going on a dog walk, for example, just actually take a moment to not listen to music, nothing else, and clear the space. In that space, you get so much clarity of the next steps that you're going to take. And you go away from that, I've got to get there, you've got to get there, to, right, I know what I'm going to do now. I'm going to try this next, or I'm going to take that step. So it's having, again, it kind of, for me, it's always about stepping back and stepping out of it sometimes to take the step forward. But I can't do that always when there's other people around. Sometimes I need that silence, and then I'm ready for my day. If I don't have my morning dog walk, my family will tell you I'm a grumpy so-and-so, because my morning dog walk with silence, nothing in my ears, nothing there, just in nature and quiet, allows me to process and think about the next little steps that are achievable in that day.
Yeah. For those who are very much task orientated, a tick list.
Oh, I love
Keep it simple. Lindsey loves to scribble all hers out. It scares me. The mess in her book absolutely terrifies me.
Right, Becky hates them, and I love a good book. Look at this, it's all scribbled.
See, I like a good book with a task list, but I have to tick it because I still need to see what the process was, because I need to see what it is that I have achieved.
I feel great satisfaction in scribbling it off when it's done. I'm like that. Yes.
But simple little things like that.
Yeah. And someone gave me a tip once. So like Becky's task lists are done on, we haven't got them here, have we, today? A4 paper. Now that scares me. I've got a little one. And when I was first training and doing something, a very good friend of mine gave me the advice that you should always write your lists on a post-it note, because then they're achievable. You could have different post-it notes for part of the process and where you're aiming towards, but actually if you keep it on there, it becomes manageable, and then you are in the process and enjoying the process and growing and nurturing yourself through the process, rather than always looking at that big end goal, which sometimes can be a really long way away. Sometimes, you know, you're setting goals for 3, 4, 5, 10 years in the future.
Or sometimes you've just got lots of different things you've got to do, lots of little goals for.
Yeah.
And actually, the big scary list on all the A4 paper is very scary. So you have it all written down so that you can park it, pin it, and not have it going through in your brain. And then you can write your post-it list. It does work.
And so why, like, I'm very passionate about the process. A lot of people in my art classes, they go, oh, I want to do this. And one of the things we have to break down first of all is them not aiming to do a finished piece, but experimenting and playing and finding out what works for them and new things. And we were just doing some sgraffito work with paint on Tuesday, and there was paint everywhere, and they were like, what, more paint? I was like, yeah, get more paint. And then we were scratching stuff, and they're like, oh, this looks cool. But they were scared to do that before because they hadn't enjoyed the process. They thought they'd got to make it look good. And so it's taken away the level of external, what's the word, validation of your work as well. Taking away that external validation to just actually go, I'm going to experiment and play within this process to find out what works best for me. And it's something really empowering that I'm really passionate about because it helps people find their voice as well, rather than feeling like you've got to say the right thing at the right time. I was in a meeting with a young person yesterday, and this young person has never spoke up in front of social workers or anybody, and they asked 2 questions, very clear and concise, and I was extremely proud of them because they're not scared of the responses anymore, or not scared that they might have got it wrong. They've just given it a go and they've tried in the process. They didn't get what they wanted at the end of it, but they're going to keep trying now. So why is it important for you, this focus on process rather than product?
Because it's the process that's going to get you to that end product. Very, very simple. But I'm going to do a flip as well. She knows exactly. She's waiting for it. She knows. And actually, I think this is the perfect time to do the flip. Because although you need to break it down, you need to understand that process to get you to that end goal. I work a lot with people to actually get them to stop fixating on the process, because you then get inside your own head. So the process is really important, but when it comes to be all and the end all, and you don't let go, and you don't let that creativity or that expression come through, you won't ever hit the end goal because you're not prepared to let go. So
we've had conversations, haven't we, about, like, and I know I've done it. I've come from a world where I have to get everything done on my list. And we were talking just the other day, well, if it's not done, does it need doing? Does it need readdressing? Can you let go of it? If you haven't done it for so long, then it's really obviously not that important, and you don't need to keep doing it as well.
Yeah, you should see. I love it when it comes to processes. I do the 4 Ds, which is the whole do it, delete it, delegate it, or delay it. And it's amazing the amount of stuff you put in delay, which then moves into delete because no one comes back at you.
Yeah, and you delay it and you go, it doesn't need to be there. So it's about that power of letting go in the process as well, isn't it? So. But
when you come to then artistic expression, and this could be whether or not you're performing a musical piece or a dance piece or expressing yourself in art, or going into the business world and presentations or team building or leading a meeting, if you're really fixated on, I have to do this and this and this, or should I do this point and this point, you lose that whole authenticity because you lose that connection with you. And you get in your own way, and that is something that we do a lot of work with breaking down for people as well. Yeah,
and making those powerful connections with the people around you and your teams to enable you to all move forward together as well. Yes. So that's our top tips. It's a balance. Like, we came into this, and I know it's like, no, it's all about process. Before we were talking about it, it's all about the process, but no, the product is just as important.
Very much.
And it's about how do you balance the two so that the process gets you where you need to go. Without fixating on one or the other.
When you're driving a car, you don't always keep driving just looking at the road a few metres in front of you. If it's foggy and the conditions are bad, yes, you do, because that's where you can only see. But you still have to look up and see where you're going further on down the road. You still have to look at your sat-nav, because we're in the world of sat-nav. I was going to say the maps. It's not sat-nav. It's all gone. But you still have to have that, because you still need to know where you're going towards.
Yeah. Equally, whilst being aware of the pedestrians on the side of the road next to you. So it's that balance of both.
So. And the shock that comes in when someone just pulls out of you randomly, which keeps happening to me at the moment. It's great.
Oh, I know.
It's like invisible.
So if you want any support and help with how to balance that, whether it be in your creative journey, whether it's to do with you personally, just in your own personal goals. We explore it lots through really interesting creative methods, and obviously through the business coaching as well. If you just want to chat and come see, then just get in touch. Be awesome. Till next time. See you later.